Fires ravaging the Amazon rainforest. G7 leaders call it a climate crisis, offering help, but Brazil's president says no. That as California continues to recover from some of the worst wildfires in state history. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. Climate change, it's one of the most divisive issues out there right now. President Trump has called it a hoax. Others think it's the most critical issue of our time. The fires in the Amazon are turning out to be another dividing line between those who believe climate change is real and those who don't. Christine Devine has more.
As fires scorch the Amazon rainforest, politics is taking center stage. Brazil's president is miffed that the G7 countries are offering $20 million to help fight the fires. Jair Bolsonaro turned it down, telling the leaders to mind their own business, criticizing France for not preventing the fire that burned Notre Dame. Last year, Bolsonaro campaigned for opening the Amazon to economic development. Many of the fires are blamed on developers clearing the land. Meanwhile, as the G7 held its climate meeting, it was really the G6. President Trump skipped the meeting, saying the U.S. is the #1 energy producer in the world, and he plans to keep it that way.
The United States has tremendous wealth. The wealth is under its feet. I've made that wealth come alive.
2 years ago, when he pulled out of the World Climate Agreement, the president said the ground rules were unfair.
This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over the United States.
Meanwhile, fires are not only damaging the Amazon. California has been ravaged by wildfires that Governor Gavin Newsom blames on ever-increasing heat.
Due to climate change. Here's the world without climate change. Here's the world we're living in. There is no debate.
But there is a debate, and both sides are staking out all-or-nothing positions.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
Freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of the most vocal climate change advocates, best known for the Green New Deal to revamp America's energy economy from the ground up.
This is the war. This is our World War II.
World War II, she says. You could call climate change a tale of fire and ice. While the focus now is on fire in the Amazon, for years we've been hearing about the melting ice in our polar regions and how that'll make the sea levels rise. Now it's fire, affecting what some people are calling the lungs of the world. A lot of people concerned about what's going on here. Some of those people in our studio right now. ATOSSA Soltani, founder and board member, or board president rather, of Amazon Watch. Cheyenne Bizon, she's an eco-educator from the group Tree People. Jack Ite of Wilder Utopia and a group called SoCal 350 Climate Change Action, Climate Action. And Karen North, a social media professor at USC's Annenberg School. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you all being here for this conversation. As we mentioned, ATOSSA is with Amazon Watch, and you're watching very closely at what's happening in the Amazon. And I wondered if you could just comment on what you've seen so far.
So since 2012, we're seeing a rise in deforestation rates in the Amazon basin. And the Amazon basin, just to give viewers an idea, is bigger than the continental United States. It covers 9 countries. Brazil is the biggest part of the Amazon. And policies in Brazil that's opening up the Amazon to agribusiness, to cattle ranching, soy farming, have been devastating the Amazon. This is an upward trend. After many years of Brazil successfully reducing deforestation, but when Bolsonaro came into power, he started doing a lot of backsliding, dismantling the EPA of Brazil, forgiving fines, opening up the Amazon to cattle ranching, even indigenous territories to mining and agricultural expansion. And then he helped to bolden the current fire season. This fire season happens every year, but this year the number of fires are 84% higher than normal, and that's because Bolsonaro has emboldened the farmers and said, let's have a day of fire. Let's get out there and open the Amazon. I mean, he's had an intention of opening up the Amazon, and that's an unfortunate situation because we know what we know now about the Amazon is that it is not just the lungs of the planet, it's the heart of the planet.
It's also been called the air conditioner of the planet. And Cheyenne, what's your thought as we watch what's happening in Brazil?
Well, of course, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because it feels like the wrong people are in power, and they're really, like you said, emboldening this horrible spread of the fire, and it's hard too to get people to realize exactly what impact it's having. A lot of people are very easily separating themselves from it because they're like, oh, well, it's all the way over there. Well, we're doing fine. It doesn't affect me directly. But people have to think about what expanse of tropical rainforest that is, what it serves our planet. Obviously, we know it helps regulate climate change. We know it has a lot of carbon sequestration. On and on and on, water purification, sequestration. So getting that to affect people personally, and therefore bolstering them to take action in their communities and things, is the thing that springs to mind when I'm looking at this tragedy happen.
Jack, your reaction to this is very similar to what we've just heard.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a land grab that's been going on, that's happening very quickly right now. There's deforestation.
When you say a land grab, we're talking about the land is more valuable without trees than it is with trees?
Yeah, well, traditionally, for a private land, you are required to only develop 20% of your land. So if you own a big piece of land, it's not worth much. So if it starts burning and it clears that of forest,
then you can do stuff with it.
And that's where the agribusiness companies come in. And so, and agribusiness with cattle and soybeans, these are some of the money that's being invested there. There's a lot of talk about Bolsonaro being responsible, but it's really multinational corporations that are financing this. And of course, the United States has a very similar advocate in the White House. And so what's happening is this is a multinational push to transfer what is this absolutely important resource, and also it's home to so many indigenous communities who are the best stewards of these lands.
One of the reasons we know a lot about what's going on is because of social media. And Karen, you're a professor of social media at USC, but what's happened? It's almost like there's been a wildfire on the web about this.
Sure, and you know, it's amazing what's happened with this, because it really bubbled up on the internet through social media before traditional news started covering it. And you know, nobody really can pinpoint why these things happen, but this is one of those moments where somebody said something in a way that really resonated with people, and people started sharing it, and now people care enough that maybe we can make a difference.
Well, one of the things we're seeing on the web, a lot of pictures, and earlier I talked to conservation photographer MOHSIN KAZMI via Skype. He's spent a lot of time in the Amazon, and he's grateful that his photos are having an impact as they go viral online.
Media right now is being overtaken with this care and concern for this biodiverse ecosystem that is truly irreplaceable. So I love that, you know, everyday people are trying to get involved in taking care of this ecosystem and trying to protect it. But, you know, it is important to note that people are also the reason that this problem is occurring.
Social media seems to be the source from which many people are learning about all of this. What's your reaction to what's happening with social media, and even maybe some of your pictures on social media?
A couple days ago, I posted the picture that is behind me, kind of talking about how it's been 3 weeks and nobody is really paying attention to this in the media. And I really appreciate how that you guys are bringing some light to this. It's unfortunate that that's, you know, what we need to do to get attention for the natural world these days. But it's fantastic to be able to have the ability to reach that many people with, you know, the click of a button.
This is a guy who's spent basically a decade in the Amazon taking videos, photos that now are really resonating with a lot of people, Karen. And this is exactly what he's talking about, getting the word out. There's no better way than social media, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, social media has the impact as we look at our phones in the privacy of our homes or look at our tablets, that we feel like we're there with the people on the ground who are taking the pictures. So his photos are just stunning, and they make people feel like they're right there looking at the destruction.
This is a video right now we're taking a look at. It looks a lot like a California wildfire in many ways, but it just happens to be in a very dangerous spot that from all we hear, affects the air we breathe. And to what extent that happens here is something I'd like to find out more about. We'll do that in just a moment. But still ahead on Fox 11 News in Depth, the fires in Southern California. We've always had them, but are they getting worse? Is climate change to blame? Some of the issues we'll be discussing coming up. California is dealing with an epidemic of fire. That's what some people are calling an epidemic anyway. Every year it seems to bring another wildfire that ranks as one of the most destructive or deadly in state history. Think of the Thomas Fire, the Mendocino Complex Fire, and last year's Camp Fire that killed 86 people in Northern California. Those and others have burned in just the past 2 years. The governor and many experts are blaming climate change.
The absence of leadership nationally, which is self-evident, California is asserting itself. Here's why. You just look at that chart where we were in the 80s. This is the western United States. You look at that red, it reflects those wildfires. Here's climate change. Here's a world without climate change. Here's the world we're living in. There is no debate. I have no interest in even engaging in the stale rhetoric of those that are in complete denial about the science. And if they need any evidence because they're intellectually incurious, come to California.
Governor Newsom taking some pretty strong words there. Look, we talked about the Amazon last time. We're going to talk about California this segment, but I did want to ask you, let's start with you. What is the impact of what's happening there affecting us here in Los Angeles, or is it at all?
Yeah, I mean, basically the Amazon is a huge conveyor of moisture. It's a rain machine of the planet. In fact, if we lost the Amazon, the hydrological system in California would be reduced by half. So these fires are also representative of a warmer world. The world is already almost 1 degree warmer Celsius. And the destruction of the Amazon is right now releasing 3 times as much carbon into the atmosphere as the fires in California released last year. So a warmer world is into a positive feedback loop. We're seeing the destruction and release of carbon there, feeding into a warmer world, which will, and also affecting the hydrological conveyor of rain to California.
In other words, it's a great big conveyor belt that just sends it across the world.
It sends it across the
and
world.
So
it is
Cheyenne,
the heart of
Cheyenne,
the world.
Given what she was just saying, do you think that people here may have a hard time thinking that what's happening in Brazil could affect us here in California because it is so far away, it is so remote?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's a major trend among people in general who are physically further away from the problem. But in Los Angeles specifically, we have to really think about how it's going to affect us in an already hot and dry climate. And we're a coastal city, so of course we have the problem of sea level rising. And the infrastructure of Los Angeles is not set up for water capture, which it really needs to be, especially with all this setting in. So I do think it's easy to separate ourselves from it, but we really desperately should not.
Jack, is it necessary for people to pay attention to this online, learn more about it, or is it one of those things that just is a fire somewhere, just like we have fires here in California, as we pointed out at the beginning of this segment?
Well, we're seeing massive fires in the Arctic, and we're seeing the melting of glaciers. We're seeing fires and deforestation and problems down in South America. We are all connected in a global system. The weather systems that we experience, like we've experienced in California, this ridiculous resilient ridge, which has sent the jet stream further north, and that is directly related to the melting of the glaciers and in the Arctic Sea. And so we have less rain here, we have a longer dry season, and what we had in those big fires the last few years was the Santa Ana wind season is extended, and Santa Ana winds usually continue into the wet season, but because the wet season doesn't start until January instead of starting in October, we have massive fires, and that's what hopefully we won't face this year.
Well, I mean, it seems to be that we're facing them every year, somehow the last couple of years. Karen, that internet is a double-edged sword. For some people, it's like, oh my gosh, and for other people, it's like, it's a hoax or something, right?
Or either a hoax or just sort of these things happen and it feels normal because there's so many reports of so many
So
things.
given that double-edged sword, is it important that there is the video and the pictures and people like we talked to earlier that are putting this information out there for people to either digest and accept or digest and not accept?
I mean, to the extent that people think, oh, well, it's just another thing, the reality is that they may be those people anyway. The internet and all digital media have really brought the Amazon and everywhere else home to us. It feels like it's our backyard or our next door neighbor because we're now seeing it in real time from real people on the ground. And that's why we care. We see that it is part of our world and that we feel like we're there because somebody's there with a camera.
And that's because that computer screen is right in front of us, right? So because that's right there, or our phone is right there, or our tablet is right there, we're seeing it. It feels like that fire is right there. All right. Still ahead on Fox 11 News In Depth, we'll learn more about what tree people do or does and how it can change the whole neighborhoods that we live in after this. Welcome back to Fox 11 News In Depth. There's a group of people who respond to fires, not while they're still burning, but after they've been put out. The organization is called Tree People. They've been on this program before, educated us about our trees and the risk they face. Here's a look at a video that they have on their YouTube channel.
The vision was engage people to save the forest, but also to get in touch with their power to make a difference. Trees have always been our life support system. The more we look at trees through an engineering lens, through a biology lens, we see that they are the infrastructure for resilience and sustainability. Our staff and our volunteers are restoring precious pieces of these local mountains back to their watershed functionality with native plants. The infrastructure systems that we originally built to protect us from flood, to make sure that there was water, they're no longer sufficient. Replacing any single piece of it is tens of billions of dollars. We don't have the money. But if we take a really smart approach and use the design principle of nature and nature itself, we can restore and retrofit this city.
In that video, Andy Lipkus with Tree People. As we mentioned, ATOSSA is with the group Amazon Watch. They've been working with the indigenous people there, and they put out a video describing the Amazon's important to us all.
The ecosystem of the Amazon could stop functioning. All of that water vapor that is lifted up by the trees is creating rainfall for all the world. The Amazon is the heart pump of our global weather system. Without the Amazon, we cannot survive this global climate crisis.
That's really quite a video. You know, in talking to MOHSIN KAZMI, who I talked to earlier, the photographer, he said that in these fires in the Amazon, that the larger animals will get out. But the reptiles, the amphibians, they'll suffocate. They won't be able to survive this sort of a thing. That's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically the impact on the organisms, on the fish, on the smaller critters is a huge.
And that happens here in California as well, because when we have these horrible fires, the bunnies, all these smaller creatures that can't get away from the flames. Another thing is, he was telling me that the animals really don't know what fire is. So when they're confronted by this, they really don't know how to respond to that necessarily. Jack, let's get back to you for just a moment. You saw those videos? Any reaction?
Yeah, well, I think that the importance is to understand that the indigenous communities out there and these species, these rare species of plants and animals, they thrive from distance from all of us, from roads, from developed places, from farms, and they also are an example of sustainability, particularly understanding how the indigenous people have managed their lands. And we have a lot to learn from them, because clearly with climate change, with all the development that we've done and all of the economic growth, we're out of control. And so we have to look to examples of how to steward our environment. And I think that's a good connection between organizations like Tree People, and which are bringing us to understand how to steward our environment and understand it a little better, and to work together, because it's when we work as a community, we can solve problems like climate change. We may not be able to solve a lot of the economic problems and a lot of what's going on in the big picture, but we can work together in our community. That's what SoCal 350 works to do as well, is to organize people, to educate them about what's going on with climate change.
Look at that video, though, we're looking at right now, the smoke. The people wearing masks. I mean, this is what it's gotten to in some places where you have these horrible fires. And it happens here in California as well. We go out and cover these fires, got to wear a mask.
Well, and all you have to do is go down to the harbor in Los Angeles, where there's 5 major refineries where the oil, which is mined in the Amazon, it's mined up in the tar sands in Alberta, all over the world, it comes to the part of Los Angeles and they're refining this. So we're ground zero of the fossil fuel industry, and we're polluting those neighborhoods that live adjacent in Wilmington, West Long Beach, and Carson, as well as the world when we burn these things. So we, as Los Angeles, are on a major part of this global supply chain, and we need to understand that and take action to push against these major corporations. We have alternatives to fossil fuels.
Let me ask Cheyenne a question here. You're with Tree People. When we talk about the fires in the Amazon, we know the fires here, Tree People will go out and repopulate those forests.
Right.
Do you do that in other places like Brazil?
No, we don't have reach out there, but that's the beauty of our message. We're empowering people here who are seeing things like this happen in the Amazon, knowing it's affecting the entire globe and thinking, what can I do and where do I start? And you have to start local. No big, huge change ever started all at once across the whole world.
It starts small and it grows.
That's right.
And on that note, Karen, where does the internet come in to help people better understand the things we're looking at on the screen right now, the planting of trees, the destruction of trees?
You know, there's so many, I love listening to these other people. There's so much knowledge out there that we don't ordinarily have. It's not in our daily lives. And so the internet or, you know, digital media bring that home to us, and not just knowledge, but action. They can tell us what to do, whether it's to take part in a movement or whether to go, how to go plant a tree.
A call to action.
Or to go do something literally in your backyard or in your community.
Right. All right. Well, you know, it's an important discussion. I'm glad we've had it, and I'm glad all of you have been with us. And coming up, a look at our latest podcast after this. Welcome back. On our podcast this week, we'll continue the conversation about the fires in the Amazon. If you'd like to know more about the fires in the Amazon rainforest and their impact, you can download What the Hell on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you subscribe to your podcast, or just go to whatthehellpodcast.com and you can find all of our episodes there. I'd like to wrap this up with ATOSSA SOLTANI. You're with Amazon Watch. What can we expect Amazon Watch to be doing in the days ahead?
Amazon Watch is mobilizing a global movement to take action for the Amazon. There's a day of global action for the Amazon on Amazon Day, September 5th. People are organizing fundraisers, events, protests, vigils, and that is a moment to really take this to the next level. When we are talking about the vital organ of the planet, we are all feeling it, we all can do something. And basically go to AmazonWatch.org.
Okay, and it's on September 5th. I want to thank all our guests for being with us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.